Scalise. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Simpson. Preach it. Appreciate as well, Chairman Westerman, and the work that these great chairmen continue to do to try to keep government functioning as best as possible in the midst of very difficult circumstances that Democrats themselves created. I do think it's important, as we're at this point, that we look back over the last 9 months and really look at the difference between the two parties in Washington. And Speaker Johnson laid a lot of this out. You can see the poster. But just think about what happens every day here. Republicans wake up every day working with President Trump to try to get this country moving forward, to address and fix problems that, frankly, were created by Democrats. And what does the Democrat Party do every single day? Every day they wake up and just see what President Trump is doing and find a way to oppose it. Doesn't matter what he wants to do. President Trump came into office day one, said he's going to secure America's border, was actually elected on it overwhelmingly. 80% of the American people agreed with President Trump and House and Senate Republicans who said that should be a priority. And we actually set course to do that. And we have done just that, secured America's border. And what did Democrats do every step of the way? They said no. They voted no to secure the border. President Trump said, we're going to try to get our economy back on track. We're going to stabilize the tax code so that no American family has a tax increase. Every American family was facing, on most cases, a 30+% tax increase. President Trump said no family deserves that. Let's stabilize the tax code and have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, so blue-collar workers can actually have more money in their pockets and empower them to do more for their families. President Trump said that. We agreed. What did every Democrat in Washington say? No. They didn't just say no. They all voted no to that. President Trump said we ought to produce more energy in America. Chairman Westerman was at the heart of a lot of those policies. You actually had to change policy to do it. So Congress and President Trump worked together to lower prices at the pump. Every American family today is benefiting from those great policies because they're paying less when they fill up their car every single day. And you would think, gee whiz, that would be a good area where all people in Washington, Republicans and Democrats, come together. But because President Trump said yes, what did every Democrat say? No. Every Democrat voted no to lower your energy costs just because President Trump said he was going to do it. President Trump also said, I'm going to do something that no president in decades had done, and that is modernize our air traffic control system. It seemed like at least once a month at some airport in America, big, medium, small, there was a near miss where an airplane almost ran into another airplane. In some cases, did tap or run into another airplane. And it was happening because our air traffic control system is still based on 1980s technology. I was actually a student of computer science and learned how to program computers in the 1980s when we had floppy drive disks. You have to Google what that is today because we don't even have them anymore, except where? At all of our major airports across America. LaGuardia running on floppy disks from the 1980s. And President Trump said, we ought to do something about that. We ought to fix it. How about we modernize our air traffic control system? Now, this isn't a new idea. You would say, well, gee whiz, why wasn't that done in the 90s, in the 2000s? For goodness sake, the computing technology on this iPhone is more modern and capability and competently technologically advanced than what a lot of our air traffic control systems are using, except it cost money. It cost billions of dollars. And so previous presidents, Republican and Democrat alike, just didn't have the time or the priority to find the money to go modernize that system. And so some days flights across America would get canceled. It was happening over and over again, at least once a month, anywhere in America, disrupting the lives of American families who just kind of figured, I guess that's just the way it is because government's in charge. Well, Donald Trump said, all right, we're going to change things because that's what Donald Trump does. He finds a problem and he works to fix them. And again, you would think everybody would come together and say yes, except because Donald Trump said it, every Democrat had to say no. And in fact, when we put it in the bill, every Democrat voted no against modernizing our air traffic control system. just because it was Donald Trump's idea. This is a sick and twisted and lost, rudderless ship of a political party. That's who we're dealing with. When the press asks, gee whiz, is there something else you can offer these folks in a negotiation to try to get this off a ramp and find a better way to get the government open? The speaker's told you over and over again, there's something we can negotiate with, but when the party is so rudderless and morally bankrupt that just because President Trump has an idea, the Democrat Party's visceral reaction is just to say no. Right now, he's actually renovating the White House, building a new ballroom. I mean, anybody that's ever been to a state dinner, like the White House has been renovated over and over again. There wouldn't be an Oval Office if there weren't renovations by previous presidents. The West Wing was a renovation by previous presidents to make it better for all future presidents. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He won't enjoy most of the time of that, but future presidents will, because in the future, when you have a state dinner, when we bring world leaders in, which we do all the time, and you host a president of a foreign country, a prime minister. I've been to some of those. Some of you have covered them. Where do you go? You walk outside of the White House in the rain sometimes to go to a tent, to host a world leader. That's what we do today. And President Trump said that's a disgrace. How about we do better? And not only did he say we were going to build a great ballroom that we can host these events, he funded it privately. He put up some of his own money. And you would think, well, gee whiz, at least they can agree to that. It's not even taxpayer money. It's going to be a permanent renovation that'll enhance the White House for all future presidents. What does every Democrat say? They say no to that. They say no to everything he does because they just are angry about the results of the election from last year. They're upset with the American people because the American people said we want somebody who's going to wake up every day and say, how can I solve Middle East peace? I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm not going to take the old failed ways of doing it for an answer. I'm going to figure out a way to go do it, and he does. How do I work to help improve the lives of Americans? He goes and finds a way to say yes, and because he says yes, Democrats find a way to say no. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, but now it's having real impacts on American families. With this shutdown, it's not just their everyday feud with Donald Trump. It's become now a problem where American families are paying the price. Let's talk about what just came out a couple of days ago. The USDA sent a letter to all of the states saying, quote, if the current lapse in appropriations continues, there will be insufficient funds to pay full November SNAP benefits for approximately 42 million individuals across the nation. 42 million people across America are going to suffer from those SNAP benefits that they count on right before Thanksgiving because Chuck Schumer and Democrats are so angry with President Trump that they just want to find a way to say no. And when they say no, now they're saying no to 42 million families who will go without food so that Democrats can show their far-left radical base that they're fighting President Trump. As if they've got to show off to some radicals who come march on the mall and hold up effigies to murder the president, 8647. You saw the signs. Over 800,000 people in my home state of Louisiana get food benefits through the SNAP program. Yesterday we talked about Senator Ossoff, who one Senate aide said on the record to The Hill in that article, said that he's more afraid of if he votes to open the government, he will lose the clicks he's getting from foreign states and the small donor donations that add to about $3 million. That's what he's afraid of. Well, let's look at Senator Ossoff's state of Georgia. 1.4 million people are going to face losing SNAP benefits just in his home state. Now, does he want each of them to send about $2 each to him to make up for the $3 million he's getting from California, in Illinois, in New York, in Minnesota? Is that what it's going to take? Because he's causing pain on people in his home state by voting no. Maybe he needs to go on vacation instead of showing up every day, as Senator Simpson said, showing up to vote no to inflict pain on 1.4 million people in the state of Georgia. That's what he's doing. So this is having real impacts on real families. We're here working, and the House has passed the bill, despite 99% of Democrats voting no, again, President Trump said yes, they say no, doesn't matter what the issue is. And the American people are sick and tired of it because now it's affecting them. Over 40 million low-income Americans are the ones who qualify for SNAP benefits. They're going to be denied food starting in November, according to USDA, because these guys just want to show their far-left radical base that they hate President Trump. It's disgusting, and it's having a devastating impact on millions and millions of Americans across the country. Our whip, Tom Emmer.